UFC Fight Night Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley is taking place this week. And we're going to do what we always do and try to predict every fight on the card as accurately as possible. This is a very solid fight card. I'm really excited for the main event. The co main event could be worse. And the rest of the card is solid fights within like the unranked areas of most divisions. So I'm just gonna break down every single fight on the card again, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, and without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Starting off with the early prelims, Jamie Lynn Horth versus Vanessa Demopoulos. I am definitely sure that all of you guys will be watching this fight for the fight, of course, not for other purposes. But I'm just gonna go with Jamie Lynn Horth. I watched Vanessa Demopoulos' last fight with Talita Alenkar. I don't really rate Talita Alenkar, but she was ragdolling Vanessa Demopoulos. Plus, you gotta consider Vanessa Demopoulos. She's 36 years old. She's lost what her last three fights, and now Jamie Lynn Horth. Do I really rate her? Not really, but she's not losing to bad level competition. Like she made it a competitive decision with Miranda Maverick, who's pretty good in the flyweight division. So I'm gonna say that Jamie Lynn Horth should win this fight. Will I be surprised if Vanessa Demopoulos somehow pulls this off? Not really. This is at best a coin flip, and I'm just gonna bet on the fact that Jamie Lynn Horth is not looking as bad compared to Vanessa Demopoulos when losing. All right, moving on, we got Phil Rowe versus Ange Lusa. Now, I am tempted to go with Phil Rowe here because Phil Rowe can pose a lot of problems for Ange Lusa with the range, but I just don't trust Phil Rowe to do that. He went into a clinch battle with Neil Magny of all people. Why are you doing that with Neil Magny? I don't understand. Brother, you are not out clinch working Neil Magny of all people. And I could just see Phil Rowe just doing something stupid like that against Ange Lusa. Maybe not necessarily clinch against the fence, but I can see Phil Rowe just trying to flip farm and just trade in the pocket with this guy. And that being said, though, Ange Lusa, I don't really rate him. However, he's not losing to the worst levels of competition. He made it a competitive decision with Gabriel Bonfim. He then lost to Brian Battle, where he basically quit the fight. And before that, he has a couple of wins against Reese McKee. Eh, that's all right, I guess. And he lost to JDM during his contender series initially, which it's fucking JDM. I think Ange Lusa, I think he's more gritty. It's a question as to whether or not Phil Rowe can actually use his range and kind of keep Ange Lusa at bay. I don't know. I'm very tempted to go Phil Rowe here, but you know what? I'm gonna go Phil Rowe. I'm gonna trust my gut. Something just tells me that Phil Rowe is gonna NPC kickbox range this out and just minorly outstrike Ange Lusa. I won't be surprised if Ange Lusa wins because Phil Rowe can do some dumb shit. But I think Phil Rowe is going to use his physicality to keep Ange Lusa at range, which we have seen Lusa struggle with a lot in his past couple of fights. Now, moving on to Ricky Simone versus Cameron Smotherman. I'm going to go with Ricky Simone. I think Ricky Simone is pretty decent. I understand that he was on a very long loss streak between Vinicius Oliveira, Mario Bautista, and Song Yadong. Yeah, I think Ricky Simone he's a step up compared to Cameron Smotherman. Cameron Smotherman is coming off the controversial win against Surrey City, where people thought that Surrey City won the fight, and I think Ricky Simone poses a lot more problems for Cameron Smotherman because for one, Ricky Simone can actually wrestle. Is he good at keeping you there? Not really, but I've never seen Cameron Smotherman really show exceptional grappling, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Ricky Simone can test it out. I know that Ricky Simone is prone to getting pieced up on the feet by someone who's like tall and rangy. Take for example Vinicius Oliveira, but Vinicius Oliveira is actually really really good. I don't really see the same level of talent from Cameron Smotherman. Like, yeah, he can like pressure and try to box you up in the pocket, but Other than that, I don't really see anything dynamic from Cameron Smotherman. I think Ricky Simone, he can pressure up as well, especially using his threat of the takedown. And I think Ricky Simone throughout 3 rounds should win this fight. Now up next we got Cody Durden versus Jose Ochoa. I am curious as to whether or not Jose Ochoa is good wrestling wise because he doesn't look like someone who can really uh just hold his ground during the takedowns. Now, is Cody Durden someone who's going to wrestle fuck you all day? Not really, but he has wrestling in his back pocket. He's not bad on the feet, but he does get teased up a lot. I do think Jose Ochoa is better on the feet overall, but it's a matter of whether or not Cody Durden can find the takedowns against Jose Ochoa. I'm gonna say that Cody Durden can get it done. I know he's had a lot of losses. He had the loss with Tagiru Lumbekov, lost to Joshua Van, lost to Bruno Silva, which is aging pretty badly. But I think Cody Durden, he's a step up in competition for Jose Ochoa. And I think Jose Ochoa, although he came in with a record of 7-0 and then fought Loner Kavanaugh to a competitive decision, I just don't see much of what Jose Ochoa can do when someone is presenting the wrestling threat. And I think Jose Ochoa, although he's very slick, I don't see the same level of output like a Joshua Van or a Tagiru Lambekov or like a Bruno Silva even. So I'm gonna say that Cody Durden can get this done by decision. It's a risky pick. I can see Jose Ochoa just piecing up Cody Durden over the course of 3 rounds, but I think I'm gonna go with Cody Durden over here. Now moving on, we got Malcolm Wellmaker versus Chris Moutinho. Malcolm Wellmaker, he's the next hottest thing. And unfortunately for Chris Moutinho, who's making his return to the UFC is not doing him any favors. Chris Moutinho, if you guys don't know, he's the guy that was going to an all-out war with Sean O'Malley, where Sean O'Malley was just dribbling fake basketballs. I think Malcolm Wellmaker, I don't know if he's better than Sean O'Malley necessarily, like, but I think Malcolm Wellmaker does have a lot of power. Now, keep in mind, Chris Moutinho, it's not that Sean O'Malley was his only loss in the UFC. He also got knocked out by Guido. I don't really rate Guido as a fighter, so we're just gonna say that Malcolm Wellmaker should get it done in the first round. I think he has a lot more nasty knockout power than Sean O'Malley. That doesn't necessarily mean he's better, but I think a Wellmaker will be able to find the right hook to Chris Moutinho's chin. It is interesting if Moutinho actually survives the first round because I can see Moutinho kind of mounting a comeback of sorts. But I just think Wellmaker, it's his time right now, and I think Wellmaker is the next big thing. So I'm gonna bank on Wellmaker to get this done by round one TKO. Now moving on, we got Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. I'm gonna go with Michael Chiesa. Now this is an unk on unk at that cookout fight, and I know that Court McGee is coming off a win against Tim Means, but it's Tim Means. Meanwhile, Michael Chiesa, although I don't rate him all that highly, he's a lot better than Tim Means. And I think Michael Chiesa is overall the better grappler. I think Michael Chiesa has more secure stand up, which is crazy to say. And I think Michael Chiesa will be able to find dominant positions against Court McGee, who also primarily relies on his grappling. I think Michael Chiesa, he's also younger, which is crazy to say because usually when I'm watching a Michael Chiesa fight, he's like the old vet taking on the new prospects. But Michael Case is 37 years old. Meanwhile, Fort McGee, he's like pushing 40. I don't really like that. And also, I never thought that Court McGee's stand up is all that good. Like I'm rating Michael Chiesa's stand up higher than Court McGee's, and that should tell you something. So I think Michael Chiesa, he should get this done. I think by maybe like a round 2 or 3 submission. If it goes to a decision, I wouldn't be that surprised, but Michael Chiesa, I think, is overall the better fighter. All right, moving on, we got Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Bellato. Now, if you are betting on Paul Craig to win a fight, you need to stop gambling and seek help. I think Rodolfo Bellato is going to sleep Paul Craig. Why would you pick Paul Craig to win a fight? Paul Craig, you know what's gonna happen. Just gonna stand there on the feet, like menacingly, not really doing anything other than throwing the body kick of doom. And then Paul Craig, he gets dropped, and then he tries to pull guard. And then, unless Rodolfo Bellato's a fucking moron, I don't see Bellato really jumping into the guard of Paul Craig. Now, that being said, Bellato, his performance with Jimmy Crute wasn't the best. I think Jimmy Crute, there was a world where you can say that Jimmy Crute kind of exposed Rodolfo Bellato. I don't think Rodolfo Bellato's all that good. I think Rodolfo Bellato's grappling can get exposed. But if Bellato's not stupid enough to jump into Paul Craig's guard, I don't see how Paul Craig is going to take Bellato down to the ground. Maybe he can shoot a sneaky double leg, but it's not like Paul Craig's known for being able to secure top control all that well. And against a light heavyweight, I think Bellato is just gonna outmuscle Paul Craig in certain positions and get back up to the feet. And once Paul Craig gets up to the feet, you know how it goes. He's gonna get up, acting like a victim again, and throw the body kick of doom. And before you know it, Paul Craig is slept out on the canvas. And also, you got to consider this. Paul Craig got outstruck by Bo Nickel for 3 rounds. Bo Nickel's a scrub. So I'm going to say that Rodolfo Bellato, although, again, he didn't look good against Jimmy Crute, and I can totally see Paul Craig somehow winning this. I just can't trust Paul Craig to win a fight. And I think that should be obvious. And if you're picking Paul Craig to win a fight in 2025, seek help. All right, moving on to the main card, we got Alonzo Menifield versus Omar Sy. All right, I'm gonna go with Omar Sy. Now, do I think he's all that impressive? No, but then again, the light heavyweight division is terrible. Like Alonzo Menifield is ranked in the light heavyweight division. Alonzo Menifield, I watched his last 3 fights, and fair enough, Carlos Olberg slept him out in 10 seconds. All right, whatever, that happens. And then Azamat Murzakanov slept him out in the second round. All right, whatever. Azamat Murzakanov is pretty slick. And then all of a sudden, we get Julius Walker, who's coming in as a short notice replacement, and Alonzo Menifield. Although the fight was fun, he looked like dog shit. I don't understand how Alonzo Menifield is ranked. I know that a long time ago that he beat Dustin Jacoby, who's now making a run, which is why Alonzo Menifield's ranked. But let's be real. I think Dustin Jacoby can beat Alonzo Menifield in a rematch. And you got to consider this. Omar Sy is a prospect that the UFC actually wants to build up. He's from France. And Alonzo Menifield is also like 37 years old. Now, Omar Sy, I don't know how good he is. I know he went to a decision with Dawoon Jung, and that is concerning because anyone who's a legitimate prospect in this division has been able to finish Dawoon Jung. But Umar Sy, I think his grappling's very good. I think his striking's a lot more technical than Menifield. Maybe Menifield can crack him in the chin, but I think Umar Sy is overall the technically better fighter. And also, I think Umar Sy can take down Alonzo Menifield. I see a lot of Alonzo Menifield's grappling primarily rely on strength, whereas Umar Sy actually knows what he's doing. I think Umar Sy, he can play it safe and just try to wrestle with Alonzo Menifield. And if he does that, I can see Umar Sy winning this fight 29-28 or 30-27 by decision. All right, moving on, we got Mansoor Abdul Malik versus Cody Brundage. Why the fuck would you pick Cody Brundage in 2025? Cody Brundage is not good. I know he came off the win against Julian Marquez, but then again, it's Julian Marquez. One thing I rate about Mansoor Abdul Malik is his ground and pound. Dude has some crazy ground and pound. Like he beating you like you just stole from him or something. Like this guy is literally coming out like Batman over here. And I think Mansoor Abdul Malik, I think once the fight hits the ground, Cody Brundage is going to curl up in the fetal position and just pull a Anthony Smith and get absolutely obliterated. I think Mansoor Abdul Malik, is he all that slick? No, I can see Cody Brundage kind of tuning Mansoor Abdul Malik up, but then once it hits the later rounds, I can see Mansoor Abdul Malik just finding the takedown on Cody Brundage and ultimately ragdolling him because Cody Brundage, anytime you press up on him, he's been probably losing. The only time he hasn't is against Jacob Malkoun, who got disqualified because he was hitting the back of the head of Cody Brundage in dominant position. So I'm gonna say that Mansour Abdul Malik should finish Cody Brundage. If he takes Cody Brundage to a decision, that will be a massive disappointment. But I think Abs- Abdul Malik should get this done via finish. Ground and pound would be the most logical choice. All right, moving on, we got Cody Garbrandt versus Howney Barcelos. I'm gonna go with Howney Barcelos. Now I understand that Garbrandt. It's not like he's coming off a loss against anyone bad. He lost to Davison Figueiredo in a competitive fight before ultimately getting choked out. But I think Howney Barcelos. I'm not just saying this because he fraud checked Peyton Talbot. I think Howney Barcelos. He did a good job of just showing off his jujitsu, and I think I'm sorry, Cody Garbrandt struggles a lot with his jujitsu. I know that Cody Garbrandt does a good job of defending the takedowns, and he's very slick on the feet, which I can see working against Barcelos. But Hani Barcelos, again, he's got good jujitsu. He's been able to keep a dominant position against Peyton Talbot for 3 rounds straight. And I think Cody Garbrandt, once he gets taken down, he is kind of a fish out of water and when it comes to jujitsu. So I think Hani Barcelos using his jujitsu should be able to get a comfortable decision against Cody Garbrandt. Maybe if Garbrandt can chin him in the early rounds, I can see that happening, but it's got to be in the early rounds. It's not like Cody Garbrandt's gonna find the knockout shot in rounds 3 or like later out in the fight. I think Hani Barcelos has the safer options to win, and that's why I'm gonna pick Hani Barcelos to win this fight. Now moving on, Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Petrosky. I'm gonna go with Edmund Shabazian. Now I understand that Andre Petrosky does pose some threat of the wrestling against Shabazian, and historically Shabazian hasn't done all that well against wrestlers. But hear me out. I think Shabazian can find the knockout shot against Petrosky. Petrosky is not good on the feet whatsoever. In his last fight with Rodolfo Bellato, I thought Rodolfo Bellato won the fight by just piecing up Andre Petrosky. Like it was just that Petrosky looked aggressive, and I think that's not going to work against Edmund Shabazian. I think Edmund Shabazian is very slick. I think Edmund Shabazian has the pull right counter that he's very good at whipping out. And I think Edmund Shabazian, although his grappling and cardio are concerning, he's just the more well-rounded striker. Now, if this fight goes past the first round, I can see Shabazian losing this fight, but I'm banking on the fact that Shabazian, he's looking improved. I know that he's not beating the best of competition. Like, for goodness sakes, he fought Dylan Butka in this last fight, and before that, he lost to the GOAT GM3, but that's why he's the GOAT. But Shabazian, he's coming into himself. He's a veteran of the sport now, and I think Shabazian will be able to find the round one knockout shot against Andre Petrosky. Now moving on, Rose Namajunas versus Miranda Maverick. I'm gonna go with Rose Namajunas. I think Rose Namajunas looked a lot better than people give her credit for. Now, say what you will about Pat Barry just diddling with Rose Namajunas and ultimately ruining her career. I think Rose Namajunas still has the skills. In her fight with Erin Blanchfield in November of last year, I thought Rose Namajunas did a very good job of piecing up Blanchfield on the feet. Now, fair enough, Blanchfield was able to get better of the grappling, and Miranda Maverick has a similar style to Blanchfield, but I don't think Miranda Maverick has the skill level of a Blanchfield. You got to consider that Erin Blanchfield, she's also a lot more better than Miranda Maverick on the feet, and she is able to get dominant positions in jujitsu once the fight hits the ground. I think Miranda Maverick, yes, her wrestling is pretty good, but I don't see her real finishing potential. And I think Rose Namajunas is a lot cleaner on the feet. I think Rose Namajunas is a lot slicker. I think Rose Namajunas is a lot faster. There is a worry that Miranda Maverick can out physicality Rose Namajunas, but it's not like Miranda Maverick can really submit Namajunas. It's not like Miranda Maverick can really outstrike Namajunas, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with Rose Namajunas to win this fight. This is a risky pick because fucking Pat Barry is gonna be in Rose Namajunas' corner, but I think Namajunas is just way too skilled for Miranda Maverick. Now moving on to the main event, we got Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. I'm gonna go with Joaquin Buckley on this one. Kamaru Usman, he's coming off a 2-year layoff, first of all. And I think Kamaru Usman of old is no more. Now, back in Usman's prime, he was able to pressure a lot of guys up against the fence, or just like use the jab and just slowly build as the fight progresses. I don't see that same Kamaru Usman. I think Kamaru Usman is a lot more tentative, like when he fought Hamza Chimaev in 2023. Now, Kamaru Usman did a showcase that he still got some skills in it, left, but it was clear that Kamaru Usman was very hesitant in his fight with Hamza Chimaev, and I think that has to do with the ring rest because even before then, Kamaru Usman hadn't fought in quite some time. I think Joaquin Buckley, he's hungrier. I think Joaquin Buckley is improving, and the last thing I want to point out is that Kamaru Usman, I don't think he's ever fought someone like Buckley before. I know that Kamaru Usman has a lot of good names on his resume, but let's be real. How many of those do you really rate right now? Colby Covington. Now, say what you will, like Joaquin Buckley. His last win is off Colby Covington, but Joaquin Buckley destroyed Covington. And I know that it wasn't Covington in his prime, but how much better was Covington in his prime than the Covington we saw against Joaquin Buckley? I never really rated Covington, to be honest. And for Usman to take like a competitive 5 round decisions in both fights, I think Joaquin Buckley kind of proved that this is the new age of the welterweight division. Joaquin Buckley absolutely chewed out Colby Covington, and I think Joaquin Buckley is going to pose a lot of threats against Kamaru Usman that he's never really seen before. Now, name one person who has the knockout potential of a Joaquin Buckley that Kamaru Usman's face. Now, Jorge Masvidal is a slick striker, but he doesn't have the knockout potential of Joaquin Buckley. I think Joaquin Buckley is a lot fundamentally better, and I think Joaquin Buckley, the key difference between a Buckley and a Jorge Masvidal, Buckley actually doesn't accept bottom position. I've seen this a lot in Jorge Masvidal's fights. He just accepts bottom position a lot whenever being getting taken down. I think Joaquin Buckley will do his best to get up on his feet if Kamaru Usman shoots for the takedowns, and I think Joaquin Buckley will be able to get the better of Usman on the feet. I know that Kamaru Usman has the piston-like jab, but realistically, what does he have other than the 1-2? It's not like Kamaru Usman can keep Joaquin Buckley at range. I think Joaquin Buckley has more tools, and I think Joaquin Buckley he can like oblique kick to Kamaru Usman's cobblestone wobblestone knees. I think Joaquin Buckley can rip Kamaru Usman up in the pocket. I just see more ways for Joaquin Buckley to win this fight. And last but not least, Kamaru Usman. I know he builds into fights, but so does Joaquin Buckley. Maybe Joaquin Buckley doesn't build up as well as Kamaru Usman, but I think Joaquin Buckley can keep up for like 4 rounds. Maybe round 5, Kamaru Usman shows Kamaru Usman of old and just starts going at Joaquin Buckley. But I think the first 4 rounds, it's just going to be too dangerous for Kamaru Usman, in my opinion. I think Joaquin Buckley is going to come out there and just knock out Kamaru Usman, in my opinion. I can see Joaquin Buckley winning a decision as well, but I think knockout's the more likely situation. I think the ring rust is going to catch up with Kamaru Usman, and Joaquin Buckley, it's his time. All right, that's gonna be for today's video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about UFC Fight Night, Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. I personally, again, rate it very highly. It's been a while since we have had a top 5 fight as a fight night, but I'm glad we got that, and I'm glad that we're not stuck in the apex for this one. But regardless, leave a comment down below what you think, and also make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.